Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted and privileged to welcome a very accomplished lawyer, entrepreneur, fellow member of the YPO from Ghana, Professor Elikem Nutifafa Kuenyehia.
Correct, you got it right.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's such an honor and a privilege to be here.
Thank you.
To talk to you. Because I've been to I'm listening to some of the other podcasts, and I really think it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Elikem is the chairman of Keystone Solicitors, a new generation African law firm. He's an entrepreneur, lawyer, writer, art enthusiast, and business facilitator focused on foreign direct investments into Africa. He's the author of Kuenyehia on entrepreneurship, recognized, felicitated, and awarded several times. He's been also recognized as a young global leader from the World Economic Forum, and as I mentioned, he's a member of the YPO. So, Elikem, tell me about your own amazing journey.
So I was born, I grew up in Ghana, went to university in Oxford, then law school, worked in the city for a few years, then decided I wanted to learn more about business. So I went to get an MBA at Northwestern in the States. After that, I worked in consumer strategy briefly, and had an incredible opportunity to move back home in Ghana to help start a bank from scratch. And did that. But in doing that, I was wearing multiple hats. So I saw the opportunity to have a very Western-based law firm in Ghana. Did that for a while and merged my law firm with another firm to become a big regional firm, to become Africa's largest law firm. 5 years ago, I exited, and it's a sabbatical. Now I'm trying to be almost like you, not quite there yet, but portfolio career with multiple interests to suit my multiple personality.
Very interesting.
In a nutshell.
Very interesting. And how has your passion for law and studying law shaped your approach to business?
So I'd say, first of all, it's the analysis that the legal profession has given me. So I approach everything from a very analytical standpoint. I'm also able to go to massive data, everything of all the cases we have to read and all the documents we have to write. I'm able to go to a lot of data to distill the key insights. So that's been very helpful. And just be able to negotiate, because our job is always negotiating the other side. And so that's also very helpful in business. So just a few things that's been very helpful.
Okay. And you mentioned that you started your law firm and you merged with another one. How does Keystone Solicitors differ from traditional law firms? And what are your visions for the future?
So if I can just go back and just tell us about the history of Keystone, in the sense that the partners working at Keystone, we all my previous law firm, Oxford and Beaumont, and we saw that firm start with me with a total investment of $5,000 US and going to a multinational law firm in 10 years. And so in doing that, we learned about the good, the bad, and ugly. So Keystone Solicitors, we are using those insights to build a truly unique boutique law firm. So the first one was all about scaling and in multiple offices and so on. This is a really truly boutique law firm in 2 offices, Accra and London, where we focus on a small number of clients, largely high net or ambitious entrepreneurs, and give them a truly bespoke service. So that's sort of one big difference. What are we trying to do ultimately? We're trying to make sure that we in becoming trusted advisors to our clients who are changing the landscape of business. We contribute quite positively in that sense to the business community.
Fascinating. And since one of the services you give to a lot of potential investors is an entry into Africa, what are some of the challenges foreign investors typically face in Africa, and how do you facilitate their entry?
So I think one of the main challenges is around the judicial system. So there's certain perception, and I think there's some reality of a judiciary that's not always, well, basically, I can't mean it's effective corrupt. And coupled with that is the judicial system itself, which is very slow. So cases can, clever lawyers can play all kinds of tricks, and the case can drag through somebody's lifetime effectively. And so that's obviously quite a sense of concern. What we do for our clients is to try and ensure that we have, the jurisdictional clause in the agreement to be like London or Paris or New York, using arbitration. That can even be a barrier on the other side, though, because the local lawyers are not local clients are not comfortable with this usual negotiating game, and they say who calls the piper determines the tune, right? Who pays the piper determines the tune. So usually we're acting for the big investors who are holding the money, so we have some bargaining power in that respect. The other things around tenure. It's a nightmare to sometimes buy land in Africa, set in Ghana, and be assured that the title you have is right. And so investors who are investing in Ghana and Africa, most parts of Africa, maybe except places like Rwanda, South Africa, and so on. But it's a real problem. And so but what we do is that we have a very specialized due diligence team that do a lot of work to ensure that's the right time. We trace the title, regulations in the land commission to ensure that our requests are dealt with quickly, and just basically that's what, obviously make sure we have quite watertight agreements. So if we need to litigate, we're able to do that.
Fascinating. And Elikem, since the time you got into the legal profession, I would love to get your perspective on how has the profession evolved in Africa, and what trends do you see in the future?
The profession has really evolved. I mean, since I started, one as a lawyer, when I started my law firm, first of all, there's a lot more competition amongst lawyers. The law schools are churning out lawyers like nobody's business. So there's lots of entrepreneurial culture. Everyone set up their own law firm. And so there's certainly been an increase in the number of lawyers. When that happens, there's a flight to quality, because clients have lots of choice, and they are, so they tend to go to the most estate clients tend to obviously choose and go to the better lawyers. Legal service is still quite highly priced, has been quite highly priced in Africa, but over the years, because of competition, it's coming down. The internationalization of law firms are part of like a global. So we obviously have an example where we set up a law firm. Within the first year, I opened a London office, went on to merge with the firm on the footprints all across Africa. We're going to see more and more because clients want seamless service. You don't talk to a lawyer in Nigeria and a lawyer in South Africa. You don't talk to one lawyer. He coordinates all of that. So that's also changing quite a bit. I'd say those are sort of the key changes that I see. I mean, obviously there's a technology and all that which applies to other industries equally.
And one more question relating to law, and then I'll move to entrepreneurship. There will be a lot of young people who will listen to our conversation. What advice would you give to young lawyers who want to make a name for themselves in the legal field in Africa?
Well, first of all, you absolutely should want to do law. Law is what I say is a jealous mistress. So if you're a young person in particular, you have to literally live what Malcolm Gladwell talked about, 10,000 hours. You have to sort of live and breathe the law. So ensure that you become a good lawyer. You have to really dedicate. So you have to make sure it's something that you really are passionate about. Secondly, and this is important because of all the competition that's coming in, so you want to stand out. Secondly, I'd say that find an area of law that you like, and then focus on it. So if it's IP that you want to do, or banking, just really focus on it and be the best possible lawyer you can be. Especially amongst the generation. That's sort of what I would say about it. Also, sorry?
Very interesting thoughts. And I love your comment, be the best lawyer that you can be. I think, for a lot of our viewers and listeners, this is very powerful advice from a man who's achieved so much already at such a young age. So, Elikem, let's now move to your other avatar as an entrepreneur and a business innovator. What motivated you to transition, or well, not transition, but move between law and entrepreneurship and business?
Completely honest, I consider myself an accidental lawyer. I had no intention of doing law. Started to rebel against my parents who were both lawyers. But then when I was applying to university, there was no course in business. Second at Oxford, there was no undergraduate business course. So I thought I'd do law for 3 years and then move into business. And in fact, when I graduated, I was going to join Shell International. But then I had an opportunity with a law firm in the city. I thought I'll qualify as a lawyer and then go into industry. The day I qualified as a lawyer, a much bigger law firm, Linklater's, calls me up and makes me an offer I can't resist. So a few years. I did that for a few years. Then went to business school. So the plan was never to do law. I've always been passionate about business. I've been lucky to have mentors from about the age of 14 who were in business. So I started my first business about that age. I started setting really the motivation. So but I haven't gotten those key skill sets as a lawyer as I discussed earlier. Then I applied them to business. And in fact, my role at the bank was I was general counsel as well as managing strategy, brand management, and business services. So I've always liked that variety. I still have a short attention span, to be honest with you. So I get bored very quickly. So I get bored a legal matters and I'm going to look at brand issue or write a book or whatever it is. Just make sure I'm still stimulating myself.
Fascinating. And how did your experience with UBA Ghana influence your approach to entrepreneurship?
In many, many ways. Firstly, it taught me that you can dream bold, brash dreams and make those dreams a reality. I was very, very fortunate to be hired by the Nigerian billionaire philanthropist Tony Elumelu. And when Tony hired me, he literally took out a blank piece of paper and said, "What role do you want?" This was, I think I was about 31 or so. He goes on to offer me a role as a senior executive and in a new bank. I was probably the most junior person in all the banking industry in Ghana to do that. And what he did was also support me to ensure that I could succeed. So I do the same thing with my guys. I encourage them to dream bold, brash dreams, and I provide them support to do whatever they want to do within context, obviously. And also, Tony also taught me that it is possible in many instances for young, inexperienced people to be better than people with lots of experience. As I said, I had no experience. I was supported to do well. So I look at very young people. I start with people straight out from university, and I found that some of them are so brilliant. Most of them actually. And you see, so he continues to do that in all the philanthropy, focusing on young people, because he really believes in young people. And he's taught me to believe in young people as well. So that's it. Last year, I see that my leadership style was also influenced by that period. My leadership style is what I call leadership by listening, management by debate, which means that, as a leader, I listen to whatever you have to say, whether I like it or not. I literally bite my lower lip when somebody's talking, sometimes because they're talking a lot of whatever, but I listen to them. And then managing by debate, because there are no secret cows. We can debate everything. Of course, I also have the decision-making power, but everything's up for grabs. And I do find that I get such rich insights from the young people I work with.
Right. Very interesting. Elikem, you're also, a columnist, and your column in Graphic Business is very widely read.
Yes.
What do you believe attracts readers to your insights on entrepreneurship?
So there's an age-old debate. Can you teach entrepreneurship? My answer is that you can't teach entrepreneurship, but can inspire people to become entrepreneurs. So it's again, and how do you inspire people? It's through storytelling. And writing profiles of people is part of storytelling. And seeing how diverse my range of audience are, what I do is that I make sure that I write about all kinds of entrepreneurs. So I write about those entrepreneurs that I call rockstar entrepreneurs. That's what people read about on the cover of Forbes magazine. I also write about my barber, who has this small little shop somewhere where I go to, or a woman who has failed terribly in business. So what is that people can relate to what I write. It's a short, I write 800 words, sometimes 700 words or so. Something you can read quickly. And I think that I write reasonably well. So that also helps.
Very interesting. Now, when I look at your legal background and your entrepreneurial background, my next question is, how do you believe the legal framework in different countries in Africa can be improved to support startup entrepreneurs?
First of all, I think that making the whole, and Rwanda is a poster child on this, making the whole process of starting a business and get all the relevant consents and licenses and all of that should be seamless. Plus, the entry requirements for foreign direct investments come there, investors come there, hire people, bring on their people as experts and so to work with locals. All that should be, when you do that, first of all, you encourage more people to come in there, and they don't waste their time chasing about various consents and permits, valuable time that they should be using to design a product or code something, etc.
Mm.
And that's really important. The judiciary and the whole machine of justice, I think, needs to just overhaul in most countries. So the speed of stuff is done, the quality of the staff, the limited education of judges when it comes to like the commercial issues. Let me take a swap derivative transaction go wrong before judges in Ghana, with the greatest of respect, most of them won't understand what you're talking about. And so we need to ensure that you are improving the education of these judges to ensure that, and then education, the last thing I say is education. The legal education in Ghana, most of Africa, is not fit for purpose. You find lawyers that are brilliant lawyers or young lawyers who are brilliant academically, they can quote chapter and verse of every law, but just ask them to apply that to a case and they're struggling. So we have to ensure that there are more practitioners teaching these courses. We have introduced more case studies, real life examples, clinics, stuff like that. I think that those are the three. I mean, we have a whole conversation.
Absolutely.
I don't exhaust the subject.
Absolutely, absolutely. My next question is that, Africa is such a large continent, and everyone is saying this 21st century belongs to Africa, but it has so many countries, each with their own set of legal systems and their own, bureaucracy, if I can use the term.
Yes.
What strategies do you believe are essential for scaling a startup in today's economic climate across the continent of Africa?
I think the first thing is developing great consumer insights, right? So you said there were different countries, different cultural systems, religious systems, and so on. So one, ensuring that you take the time. Well, I think whatever business you're in, consumer insights is fundamental. Understanding the consumer, what are they thinking about, what are their worries, what are their challenges, and also your competitive set. And when you understand the consumer or the customer, then use the insights of that to craft your business. So if you're selling, for there's an example of a company that failed miserably in Ghana, a fast food company. They come to Ghana and they serve the food from their home country, which Ghanaians don't like. The successful ones are able to modify their cuisine a little bit to suit local taste palettes. Exactly the same thing. So understanding them. Secondly, trying to respect the environment and finding local champions. The whole idea of local content. So you just come and say, this worked for me in Belgium or South Africa or wherever country it is. But making sure that you bring those skills, but partner with locals who know the terrain. Help them. So what do I do to make the lives of my clients slightly easier? It's supporting. We have a recent network of lawyers across the continent. So once we understand what they require, hand-holding them to ensure that it's a seamless transition. We have various relationships with local content. We're very familiar with the laws to help you structure local content. If you're struggling with partners, we can recommend partners to you. So that's basically, those are some of the things that we do to. But you see, as a role of trusted advisor, well, fundamentally, we try and understand your business and handhold you across all your aspirations. It may not be legal. Some of the questions are legal. My role is to coordinate you getting the best possible legal advice, advice in that area, whether it's marketing or it's in the fulcrum. But that's what I call Keystone. So with a keystone in the customers or the clients' business ecosystem. So the key so that holds everything together.
Great response. Thank you. So I'm now going to move to your book. You're the author of a book which is titled Kuenyehia on Entrepreneurship.
Yes.
You talk about support advice for budding entrepreneurs. Yes. Tell me a little bit about some of the key principles that you have emphasized.
So one of the first principles I emphasize, and this is something I talk about in any interview I give, every speech I give, is that you got to develop bold, brash dreams. And once you've done that, develop the audacity to make those dreams a reality. Right? How do you do that? It's through constantly feeding your imagination, developing skill sets, a key set of skills that will enable you to execute. So that's one thing. The other thing is about consumer pain. So a lot of businesses start, especially in Africa, copycat businesses. So Mr. Y is not the business, so I can go and do it. But do you understand what the consumer is really worried about? It might be a latent need, actual need. One of my best examples is Henry Ford, who said that if you had asked customers what they want, they would have said a faster horse. So you realize that, yes, it's the horse they want, but want something much better based on their own aspirations and so on. That's definitely one of it. And the other one is about that anybody can become an entrepreneur. Anybody, while they have the passion and are willing to learn a key skill set to become successful. Those are, I say, some of the key principles of the book.
Very interesting. And on that note, Elikem, and your amazing 2 comments for entrepreneurship, audacity, we'll develop some audacity and everybody can become an entrepreneur. Thank you so much for speaking to me about your own journey. What an exciting journey you've had. Thank you for speaking to me about all the work that you are doing in the legal profession and creating, Keystone Solicitors, which is a new generation African law firm. Thank you also for talking to me at length about entrepreneurship in Ghana and in Africa. Thank you again for speaking to me, and good luck.
No, thank you. It's an absolute pleasure. And I look forward to continue to watch other podcasts.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.